Welcome to Forbidden Desires channel that we hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. I never imagined my life would turn out this way. At 45. I thought I would have things figured out, love purpose, the kind of steady companionship s that fills the quiet moments. Instead, I found myself in a relationship s with a man I barely knew, simply because loneliness had whispered in my ear for too long. Will wasn't a bad man. He was kind enough, dependable in the way that made things easy. But there was no spark, no restless ache when he touched my hand. We had been seeing each other for a few months, now meeting for quiet dinners, exchanging obligatory kisses at the door. It was companionship nothing more. He never stirred anything deeper in me, never made my skin prickle with something I couldn't name, but William. William was different. My son had always been the bright spot in my life. My laughter on the hard days, my proof that I had done something right. At 25, he carried himself with an effortless confidence. A man fully settled in his own skin. He lived for the road, for the purr of a motorcycle beneath him, for the brotherhood of bikers who lived as freely as he did. He was wild and full of life in a way that both worried me and made me proud. William and I had always been close, closer than most mothers and sons. He told me things other boys might not tell their mothers. He confided in me about his biker gatherings, about the rush of the wind when he rode, about the girls who flirted with him at the bars. I listened, laughing at his stories, even when I didn't understand them. I wasn't part of that world, the leather, the rumbling engines, the tattooed camaraderie, but I supported him in it. It was his life and I loved him for it. Will, however, didn't see the appeal. You encourage it too much, he told me one evening as we sat on my porch, the biker thing. He's young, but he should be focusing on something stable. I had frowned, the words sitting wrong in my chest. He loves it. It makes him happy. Will exhaled sharply, shaking his head. I just think he should be thinking about the future, and that was where he and I were different. William was my future, not in the way a man was supposed to be, but in the way that mattered. I had spent years raising him, shaping him into the man he was. There was no greater joy in my life than seeing him happy, wild, and free. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Will's words still circling in my mind. The thought of William changing, of him giving up the life that made him feel alive, made my chest tighten. I wouldn't let anyone, especially a man I wasn't even sure I loved, convince me otherwise. The next afternoon, William showed up unannounced, the roar of his bike echoing through the neighborhood. I was on the porch watering my plants when he pulled up, swinging his leg off the bike in one smooth motion. He grinned at me as he pulled off his helmet, his dark hair tousled from the ride. "Miss me?" he teased. I rolled my eyes but smiled. "You were here 3 days ago." "That's 3 days too long," he said, stepping onto the porch and pressing a kiss to my cheek. His lips were warm from the sun, and I had to fight the shiver that threatened to rise on my skin. I set down the watering can and crossed my arms. "What do you want?" William smirked. "Can't a guy visit his favorite lady?" I shook my head, laughing softly. He had always been like this, charming in a way that was impossible to resist. "You hungry?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Starving," he admitted, following me inside. I moved to the kitchen, pulling leftovers from the fridge while he leaned against the counter watching me. His presence filled the room as it always did, and I found myself hyper-aware of him, the way his shirt clung to his chest, the way his fingers drummed idly on the countertop. As I reheated the food, he spoke. "You still seeing that guy?" I stiffened slightly but kept my focus on the stove. "Will, yeah." William made a noise of disapproval. "You don't sound too excited about it." I sighed, turning to look at him. "It's not exciting, but it's nice to have someone." His eyes darkened slightly. "You don't need someone, Ma, you've got me." There was something in the way he said it, something quiet, but certain, that made my stomach tighten. I forced a chuckle, brushing off the moment. "That's not the same thing, isn't it?" His voice was low, almost challenging. I opened my mouth to respond, but the microwave bleeped, cutting through the tension. I turned away, buying myself with plating the food. William didn't press the matter, but I felt his eyes on me the whole time. Later that night, after he had eaten and lingered longer than necessary, William finally stood to leave. He hesitated at the door, his helmet tucked under his arm. "Come to the party this weekend." I blinked at him. "What, the biker party Saturday night come?" I scoffed, shaking my head. "William," I'd stick out like a sore thumb, a smirk. "You'd fit in more than you think. Decide." "I don't know." "Think about it," he said, leaning in and pressing another kiss to my cheek before heading out the door. I stood there for a long time after he left, staring at the empty space where he had been, and for the first time in a long time, I thought about doing something completely out of character. Maybe I would go to that party. Maybe I wanted to see him in his world. Maybe I wanted to understand the way he looked at me today. I had never felt so out of place in my own skin, yet at the same time so strangely alive standing in front of my bedroom mirror. I barely recognized myself. The tight black jeans hugged my curves in a way I hadn't thought about in years. The leather jacket, William's suggestion, felt foreign but powerful, draped over my shoulders. I had even told my hair, giving it a wild, untamed look, and the deep red lipstick I rarely wore made me feel like someone else entirely. Someone reckless, someone bold, someone who belonged in William's world. I had hesitated when I first put the outfit on. Staring at my reflection, I wondered what I was even doing a biker party me. I had spent my life in book clubs, dinner parties, quiet Sunday mornings, not roaring engines, fire shows, and leather-clad strangers drinking under the open sky. And yet when William knocked on my door that evening, the look in his eyes when I stepped out made all my doubts disappear. "Jesus, Ma," he breathed, taking me in from head to toe. His expression was unreadable for a moment, something flickering behind those familiar brown eyes before he grinned. "You look damn good." His voice was different, rougher, and for the first time it occurred to me that maybe this wasn't just a joke to him. Maybe he had actually wanted me there. "You think so?" I asked, smoothing the leather against my arms. William let out a low chuckle, stepping closer. "Oh, I know so," and with that he held out his hand. "Let's go." The moment we arrived at the party, I knew I had made the right choice. The atmosphere was electric. Dozens of bikes lined up under string lights, their chrome gleaming under the setting sun. People were everywhere, laughing, drinking, music blasting from unseen speakers. The air smelled of gasoline, smoke, and something sizzling on a nearby grill. William held onto my waist as we walked in together, and I felt the weight of every pair of eyes turning toward us. Conversations paused, beer bottles froze halfway to lips, and the shock rippled through the crowd like a gust of wind. "William, man, who's the—" One of the guys started but trailed off, eyes wide as he took me in this. "William," said, pulling me in a little closer as my mother beat of silence. Then almost simultaneously, voices erupted around us. "No way, shit. She looks like William. You sure you're not messing with us?" Someone whistled low and a woman with bright blue hair nudged William's shoulder with a teasing grin. "Damn, William, your mom is a knockout." I should have felt embarrassed, but instead I found myself smiling the way people looked at me, admiring, surprised, intrigued. It was something I hadn't felt in years. Not since I was young, not since before William. "You guys are ridiculous," I said lightly, shaking my head. "I'm just here for the show." William tightened his grip on my waist, his fingers pressing into my side as he leaned in slightly. "Yeah," he murmured, "but I don't think they're gonna stop talking about you all night." He wasn't wrong. Throughout the evening, I caught whispers whenever I passed. Compliments, jokes. Even a few bold attempts at flirting. William, however, never left my side. He introduced me to his closest friends, always keeping an arm around me as if staking some kind of claim. Whenever someone got a little too bold, his hand would tighten against my S, or he'd pull me into his side with an easy, casual touch. At first, I told myself it was just protective. William had always been that way with me, but the way my pulse quickened every time he touched me, the way my breath caught when his lips brushed too close to my ear as he spoke, it wasn't motherly and it certainly wasn't son-like. The fire show began just as night fell and the entire party gathered around a massive open space. The performers bare-chested men and fierce-looking women in leather-twirled flaming staffs, swallowing fire and spitting it back out in dazzling arcs. The heat of the flames danced across my skin, making me shiver. Despite the warmth, William stood behind me, his chest nearly touching my back, his hands resting lightly on my waist. When I swayed slightly in awe, he steadied me, his fingers flexing against my sides. I knew I shouldn't have liked it as much as I did. By the time the fire show ended, I was breathless, my heart still racing. The moment was interrupted when a few of the guys clapped me on the back. "You got a ride tonight, Sophia," one of them said. "No way you can come to one of these and not get on a bike." I laughed, shaking my head. "Oh, I don't know." "Come on," another chimed in. "You'll love it, bet you'll start showing up every week." William chuckled behind me. But when I turned to look at him, his smile was different. He stepped closer, reaching up and tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered against my skin, warm and firm. "Mom," he murmured, just low enough for only me to hear, "can you ride it?" The question sent a shiver down my spine. I nodded, swallowing past the tightness in my throat. "Yeah, I can." He grinned, stepping back as one of the guys handed me a helmet. "Let's see it then," and so I did. I swung my leg over the bike, gripping the handlebars as the engine roared to life beneath me. The power thrummed through my veins, and suddenly I understood why William loved this world so much. It wasn't just about bikes. It was about freedom. The moment I took off, the wind rushed against my skin, pulling laughter from my lips. The cheers and whistles from the crowd faded behind me, and for the first time in years, I felt truly wildly alive. When I returned, the applause was deafening. People clapped, shouted, smacked my back like I had just become one of them. William, however, was silent. He stood there watching me, his expression unreadable. Then as I took off my helmet, he stepped forward. Without thinking, he reached out, brushing his fingers against my cheek before leaning in and pressing a firm kiss to my forehead. "Good," he murmured, his voice low and thick, "very good." I should have laughed it off, should have shaken my head and teased him like I always did. But I didn't, because for the first time since this night had started, I saw the way William looked at me, and it was not the way a son looked at his mother. Something shifted after that night. I told myself it was just the thrill of the ride, the rush of breaking out of my routine of being seen not as someone's mother, not as just another woman in her 39s, filling the silence of her life with a man she didn't love, but as someone alive. But I couldn't deny it. It wasn't just the party, it wasn't just the bike. It was William, the way he had looked at me, the way his hands lingered, the way his voice dropped when he spoke close to my ear, the way my heart had tightened when he pressed that kiss to my forehead, murmuring, "Very good." That night after I got home, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, still in that leather jacket, my hair wild from the wind, my lips still tinted red. I looked different. Not like a mother, not like a woman pushing through middle age, clinging to a man. She barely felt anything, for I looked like a woman who had been wanted. I didn't sleep much. That night William started coming around more often. After that, it wasn't unusual for him to stop by, but there was a new energy now, something thick and electric, stretching between us and the quiet moments. He lingered longer, found reasons to stay. The second night after the party, he showed up with takeout, knocking on my door like he always did. "Brought dinner," he said, grinning, holding up a bag of greasy burgers and fries. "Figured I owed you after you put on a show for my friends the other night." I laughed, stepping aside to let him in. "So what? This is a celebration dinner." William smirked as he set the food down, pulling off his leather jacket. "Something like that. You were the star of the night, you know." I rolled my eyes, grabbing plates. They were just surprised I wasn't some old lady in a cardigan. William gave me a look, shaking his head. "They were surprised because you looked damn good." I paused, my hands tightening around the plates. His voice was different, again lower. I swallowed, forcing a smile as I turned away. "Well, I'm glad you got some entertainment out of it." William didn't say anything for a moment, but I felt him watching me. Dinner was easy, at least on the surface. We talked like we always did, laughing, teasing, sharing stories, but under it there was something else, something neither of us was acknowledging. William sat closer than usual. His knee brushed against mine under the table. His hand lingered when he passed me a drink and I let it. It happened in little ways, at first touches that lasted too long, the way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking, the way I caught myself holding my breath when he leaned in too close. I should stopped. It should have made things clear, but I didn't, cause I liked it. I liked the way William looked at me now, like I wasn't just his mother, like I was something else. A week later, Will came over. I had been avoiding him since the party, not intentionally, but something inside me recoiled at the thought of his presence, the dullness of it. He sat on my couch sipping coffee, talking about his work, about a vacation he wanted to take. I was thinking we could get away for a bit, he said, smiling at me, somewhere quiet, maybe the mountains, I nodded. But my mind was somewhere else. I was thinking about the way William had held onto me at the party, about the way his lips had brushed against my forehead. I was thinking about the way I had felt something real. For the first time in years, Sophia, I blinked, focusing back on Will. Yeah, I said quickly, forcing a smile that sounds nice. 'Twas a lie. William came over that night. It was late, almost midnight, when I heard his bike outside. I had just gotten out of the shower, my hair still damp, wearing nothing but a thin tank top and sleep shorts. When I opened the door, William stood there, hands in the pockets of his jeans, his face unreadable. Hey, I said, surprised everything. Okay. He nodded, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Just wanted to see you, he said casually. But there was an edge to his voice, something deeper than his usual playfulness. I closed the door behind him, arms folding across my chest. William, it's late. I know. He looked at me, then really looked at me. His eyes moved over my damp hair, my bare arms, my legs. I should have told him to go home, but I didn't. Instead, I swallowed hard and turned toward the kitchen. You want to drink? William followed me, leaning against the counter as I poured us both some whiskey. When I handed him his glass, our fingers brushed and he didn't pull away. Neither did I. I met his gaze, and the air between us shifted, thick and humming. You gonna tell me what's on your mind? I asked. Quietly. William took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes locked onto mine over the rim of the glass. You looked happy the other night, he said. Finally, at the party, I swallowed. I was. His jaw tightened slightly with them. I exhaled a soft laugh, shaking my head with you. Silence. William set his drink down on the counter. Then he reached out and tucked another loose strand of hair behind my ear, just like he had at the party. Only this time his hand didn't move away. His fingers lingered, brushing lightly against my skin. I didn't stop him. William, I whispered, my voice barely audible. His fingers trailed down, skimming along my jaw, then stopping at my collarbone. I could feel my pulse hammering beneath his touch. He exhaled sharply, stepping back slightly, shaking his head as if trying to clear it. I should go, he muttered. I should have agreed, but instead I said, stay. William froze, his eyes searching mine. My heart pounded so hard I thought he might hear it. Then finally he nodded, and just like that, everything changed that night. William stayed. We didn't talk much after that. We just sat together on the couch, the quiet stretching between us, heavy with everything unspoken. At some point I leaned into him, resting my head against his shoulder. He didn't move away. Instead, he wrapped an arm around me, pulling me in closer, and I let myself sink into his warmth, into the feeling of his body against mine. I let myself forget just for a little while that this was supposed to be wrong, because in that moment it didn't feel wrong at all. William started coming over more. At first it was just an extra visit here and there, showing up for dinner unannounced, bringing over food or beer like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then he started staying, later falling asleep on my couch, leaving an extra set of clothes in my spare bedroom. And then one day he just never left. It wasn't something we talked about. There was no conversation, no decision made, just happened. His bike was always in my driveway, his jacket draped over the chair. his presence filling the house like it had never been gone. I told myself it was just temporary, that he was just visiting more, but deep down I knew William had come home and I had let him. I broke things off with Will the way a person pulls off a band-aid, quick, clean, painless. Or at least that's what I wanted. We were sitting at a quiet cafe when I told him I had chosen a public place on purpose, thinking it would soften the blow. Keep things civil. I think I need some time, I said, stirring my coffee without really drinking it. Will frowned. Time. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. I don't think this is working the way it should, and it's not fair to either of us. If I keep pretending. His voice was sharp, now edged with disbelief. Where is this coming from, Sophia? I thought we were fine. Fane. That was the word that had followed me through this entire relationship. S fane. Not passionate, not thrilling, not full of fire or warmth. And I wasn't fine anymore. I was alive. It's just something I need to do, I said, exhaling softly. I can't explain it. Will stared at me, his jaw tight. There's someone else. Isn't there? Flinch? I should have denied it, should have told him he was imagining things. But I didn't. I just need time, I repeated. Will leaned back, running a hand over his face. He was hurt, could see it. But more than that, he was frustrated, not because he had lost something precious, but because he didn't understand. And that was exactly why I needed to leave. First, Will left me alone, but then the messages started. Then the calls. First they were polite, concerned. Are you okay? Can we talk? I just want to understand. Then they became more frequent. I deserve an explanation. Sophia, you can't just throw this away without telling me why. Then one day I came home to find him standing on my porch. William wasn't there that evening. He had gone out for a ride with his friends, giving me a rare moment alone. But now standing on my doorstep. I wished he wasn't gone. Well, I kept my voice even, but my stomach tightened. What are you doing here? He shrugged, shoving his hands into his pockets. You won't answer my calls. What was I supposed to do? I told you I needed time. No, you gave me nothing. He shot back, his voice growing tense. You just walked away. Don't I deserve to know why I folded my arms? You deserve someone who wants to be with you, Will, and that's not me. His expression darkened. Is it him? My breath caught. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your son. Something inside me went ice cold. I don't know what you're talking about, I said carefully. Will scoffed. Come on. Sophia. Do you think people don't notice? Do you think I didn't notice? His jaw tightened, his hands clenching at his sides. He's always around like he owns you. A chill ran down my spine. He noticed. I swallowed. Will you need to leave? He didn't move at first, just stood there watching me, his chest rising and falling. Then finally he let out a bitter laugh. Unbelievable, he muttered, shaking his head, and then he was gone. William found me sitting on the couch later that night, staring at nothing. He walked in, smelling like the road, like cool air and gasoline. And the second he saw me, he stopped. What happened? His voice was sharp. I swallowed, shaking my head. Nothing. William wasn't buying it. He stepped forward, crouching in front of me, resting his hands on my knees. Ma. I looked at him, then at the concern in his eyes, the way he watched me like I was the most important thing in the world. And just like that, I cracked. Will came by. William's body stiffened. What did he want? Hesitated. Then, finally, I whispered. He knows. The room went still. William's grip tightened slightly, his jaw clenched, but his voice when he spoke was calm. What did he say to you? Just accusations? I exhaled shakily. Nothing concrete. William nodded slowly, his hand sliding up to my waist, steadying me. Do you want me to handle it? His voice was low, controlled, but there was something dangerous beneath it. I shook my head. No, it's over. I ended it. William exhaled, the tension in his shoulders loosening slightly, but he didn't move away. Instead, he stayed close, his hands still on my waist, his eyes locked onto mine for a long moment. We didn't speak then. William reached up, brushing his thumb lightly against my jaw. "You don't regret it," he murmured. I didn't ask what it was. 'Cause I already knew. "No," I whispered. "I don't." William's lips parted slightly. His hands slid up, framing my face, his thumbs brushing against my cheekbones. And then he kissed me. Soft, slow, hesitant. At first I should have pulled away. I should have stopped it, but I didn't, because in that moment, with William's hands on me, his lips pressing gently against mine, I finally felt what I had been searching for all these years, not just passion, not just desire, a home. William never left. After that, we stopped pretending, stopped making excuses. He lived with me, moved his things into my room instead of the spare people. Whispered, people noticed, but I didn't care for the first time in years. I wasn't lonely. I wasn't just waiting for life to pass me by. I had found something real, something raw, something undeniable. And no matter what the world thought, I wasn't going to let it go, because William wasn't just my son, he was him. My story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next videos.